So today we have a really cool guest. This is Shawn Wells. Now, Shawn has so many different letters and acronyms after his name and degrees that we'd have to spend a whole other podcast just listing all those out and talking about those. But he is pretty amazing. He is an expert in the fields of performance nutrition, longevity, fitness, and supplementation. He's been dubbed the world's greatest formulator. He's a biohacktivist, which we're going to talk about on the episode as well. And then he has just been around the world. I mean, he's helped transform a lot of lives through his supplements, his biohacking. He's been featured on a lot of different media outlets, and he's actually be writing a book here this year. So let's go ahead and let's get going into this week's episode.
You're listening to the Dr. Chris Show. Are you tired of the short-term patch to your health problems? Is avoiding medications and surgeries important to you? If you answered yes, then your prayers have been answered. Dr. Chris has been helping people transform their health for over a decade. He's a world-renowned health expert who specializes in holistic health. He's a professional speaker, chiropractor, and international best-selling author. It's his mission to help you reach your full God-given potential through holistic health and healing. Get ready to be inspired and transformed. Here's your host, Dr. Chris.
All right, everyone, and welcome to another episode where disease takes a dive and people come to thrive. And today we have an awesome guest today. I'm super excited to have Shawn Wells on today. He is the biohacking genius. So let's go ahead and turn it over to Shawn. Shawn, good to see you, man.
Thanks for having me on, brother. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Now, for those of you that are just now listening, this is actually our second attempt. So Shawn and I are super dedicated to having you guys really understand and hear this knowledge that we're about to share with you today. So second time's a charm, right?
You know, it was because I was just cussing too much last time. There was almost no usable footage, you told me. So I'm back. I'm calm this time. I'm
No, man, I want you to bring the heat, you know, that social media censoring, that's off the table here. So we're good to go 110% today. So, man, Shawn, I just want to start off by having you share your story, your struggles that you went through in your life that really have helped you get to where you are today and helping people in this really super important area of our lives, which is all things biohacking, nutrition, everything associated with that. So can you share that story with us?
Yeah, you know, I grew up in a chaotic home and bullied at school and laughed at for being a little overweight, which kind of drove me to be more overweight and, you know, try and escape into cartoons, Oreos, and sugar cereal. And, you know, I was a junk food junkie because that, you know, was the only reprieve I had. Like I sought out that dopamine and serotonin, and I felt very depressed for most of my childhood, you know, at times suicidal. Those are things I battled my whole life. And I did get into a good college. I went to a business school, Babson College, and it was around in between my sophomore and junior year, I went to see a doctor for a physical for school, and I was telling him about this passion because I started like working out, like my body was transforming a little bit. I was, you know, kind of going up a set of dumbbells each time I'd go to the gym, and that was exciting. And, you know, I was taking creatine and protein and seeing benefits and reading all these magazines. And I was telling him about all this stuff, and he like stopped and looked at me and said, why not be happy between here and here? And this is after he drew out this lifeline between 20 and 80. And the fact that like this guy didn't have to do that, or he could have laughed at stupid supplements being a doctor or, you know, whatever, over, you know, 20 some years ago. And, you know, him taking that moment changed my life path completely. I decided to finish up business school, you know, get a minor in chemistry. And then, you know, I did well enough and I decided to go back to school to do exactly what he said. It would take me, you know, minimum amount of time if I really busted my ass would be 2 years. And that's what I wanted to do. And I went to UNC Greensboro. My parents were in state down in North Carolina. And so I went there and I told the guidance counselor, I said, you know, I really want to do this nutrition and fitness thing. And my dream school is Chapel Hill. And I need about 26 credit hours a semester for 2 years to knock it all out, all these prereqs. biochemistry, biology, chemistry, or all the things, anatomy, physiology.
All the good
And
stuff.
yeah, and this guy laughed at me, and he told me that not only am I overweight and I have no business doing those degrees, but also that I would fail and fail miserably as a business student. And so, it hurt on many levels. And I've thought back to that guy a lot in my life and thought how sad it is that, hurt people, like, and how many dreams he must have taken away. But, the contrast is important to me. These two guys in my life, one had the ability to change my path for good. And really when no one else was that voice, a stranger was that voice and changed my path. And then a stranger almost took all my dreams away. And that night I almost took my life, like with pills and alcohol. So, because I spent years focused on this dream, and then it felt like somebody just ripped it out from under me. Yeah. But I ended up having resolve and not doing that. And I thought of that guy every single day. Kind of hate drove me. It's not in the healthiest way. Like, people would say, let's go out and party, let's go out and drink and all these things. And I was like, no, man, like that guy was on my mind every day. Like I heard his voice in my head every day. And I finished up in 2 years, got straight A's, got into Chapel Hill. And, I felt blessed to get there. And I felt kind of avenged in some ways. And, but then,
yeah, totally.
But then like, not too long into being at Chapel Hill, I think I was pushing my body with, just late nights and extreme stress and working out and trying to, be as lean as possible and all these things. I was pushed to the limits, like mentally and physically. And, always dieting and taking ephedrine and all these kinds of things. And I got a ton of autoimmune issues that just shut me down. Epstein-Barr virus, which is also known as mono. I had strep with it. I had chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, Hashimoto's. Like I, again, like was just at a suicidal point because I couldn't get out of my bed. I was in pain. I was inflamed. I thought this was my new life. And I ended up doing some research, and this is about 20 years ago, and stumbled into keto. And, this is obviously ahead of the curve here. But it ended up having a radical impact on my autoimmunity, on my ability to, be resilient, bounce back. And that was a game changer for me. And I was able to finish up at Chapel Hill and pursue my passion. I ended up working clinically as a chief clinical dietitian, and then, working on the side, hustling to pursue all these other things, get my certified sports nutritionist accolades. And then also, working for supplement companies, just on the message boards and, going to the Arnold and the Olympia at their booths and formulating products and answering questions. And it just kind of kept rolling because I made it roll. Like, I was working like 40 to 50 hours a week, but as a chief clinical dietitian, but literally like every evening, every weekend, every holiday, I was like, traveling or answering questions or just devoting myself fully to this career I wanted. And I ended up getting in there. I ended up getting like an amazing job to formulate supplements for Dymatize in Dallas. And that's where everything really got rolling. But it was about 8 years ago when I was at Dymatize and I was pushing about 70 hours a week there and still, running myself ragged, that I got a brain tumor. And, that's when I focused in on all the tools, like doing paleo, keto, fasting, biohacking myself, and then starting to work on some stress reduction techniques. And more recently, I've been doing a lot of like deep self work, and it's been a lifelong journey, man, trying to like undo some of the shit that we do to ourselves and say to ourselves and make ourselves believe. It really impacts our health. Our mental health impacts our physical health so dramatically. And those are things I'm finally learning, that you can't just run yourself ragged and stay competitive, stay sympathetic nervous system all the time. Like you got to shut it down sometimes. And my whole life I've been fighting and pushing and fighting and pushing, and now and I've gotten places, like it served me, but now I need to like shut it down sometimes and take a step back, and those are lessons that I've learned.
Well, that's huge, right? Because like you mentioned, you've been on this journey, and that's exactly what life is. It's a journey. It's not a race where we gotta, just push, and then all of a sudden it's over. No, like you're pacing yourself right now for the long haul, for the marathon, not just a short sprint. We can go in life in sprints, but we definitely got to recharge. And so I love how you were able to take what was at the moment in life your biggest curse, this guy who was telling you everything you couldn't do, and how that just sets you back. But then you use that to really be your biggest blessing in your life.
Agreed. Like there's, I've talked about this in presentations, that my broken is my beautiful, that like, and I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be talking to Chris Murphy. I wouldn't be like on stages. I wouldn't have done all the things I've done if it wasn't for all the tough stuff that happened too. And, I truly believe like the obstacle is the way, like, that stoic kind of path, that like we become more resilient. We become stronger, through this stuff.
Absolutely.
And so I'm proud of where I am. And now I'm proud to like just be taking a step back but still serving people and in a healthier place mentally.
No, absolutely. I was on a call earlier today, and something popped out on that call for me. It was, a lot of times we look at it as in life, wins and losses. We keep track of things, but it's really wins and lessons learned.
Totally.
There's only two things. Totally. There are no losses in life. So, you've been dubbed the world's greatest formulator. What does that mean?
Some people take issue with that are formulators in the industry. I did not dub myself haters. That. I know. There always is. But here's the thing. I tell other people that are formulators, one, I didn't call myself that. And two, you can be in your own mind whatever you want to be. Like, it's not a competition. And world's greatest is subjective. And the reason I believe it to be true for myself, I believe I am the best at what I do, but in different ways. Like, there's some guy that might be better at biochemistry, or there's some guy that may have done more in academia, but I have 10 years of experience as a chief clinical dietitian. I have written position papers for the journal, the CISSN. I'm a certified sports nutritionist. I'm a biochemist. I have an undergrad degree in management and marketing. And, I've managed teams of 50 people in hospitals. I've managed teams of 30 or more at some of these supplement companies. And I've taken supplement companies in 3 years from one acquisition to another acquisition and made them highly successful, like reformulating hundreds of products. And so, like, I think I have a knowledge and understanding of how to run a supplement business top to bottom. I understand like how to make marketing hooks. I know like a formulation that, will sell and is built right and, tests out right. And so like, I think I'm just unique in like all the pieces I have. Most formulators I know are a little disconnected from the business, or or just don't have the social skills to be up on stage, for example. I write, I speak on TV, on stage. And so I think I'm just a, kind of a Renaissance guy. And for me, that's what makes me the best at what I do.
I love it. Now, one of the other things that you associate yourself with is a term that some of our listeners might not be familiar with, which is a biohacktivist. So can you explain to our listeners what is a biohacktivist? What is biohacking? Yeah. And then what are some things that you're doing in your life to biohack?
Yeah, that's a term I kind of mashed up of two words that are already mashups. Biohacking is hacking your biology, like looking for shortcuts to improve longevity or performance. And then hacktivism is a term for hacking for the social good. Like think of like Anonymous, Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, like people that were doing things for social justice reasons, not for like personal gain. However you feel about Edward Snowden, you can't argue that he was somehow doing it for notoriety or personal gain, like because the hell that he's been through is crazy. So this idea of like biohacktivist is like, I always feel like biohacking is like this N of one, and self-quantification, and how do I push my performance, and how can I be better, and how can I get more, and how can I make more money, and how can I win that race. And to me, the most important thing in this world is like above self-actualization on that pyramid of Maslow would be helping others self-actualize. And so I love the idea of like being at your peak mental and physical well-being through biohacking so that you can interact with the world and create a better world around you. Like when your head's up, you can see that person crying, you can hear that strain in their voice, and you can ask questions. And it's only when you're like really thriving that you can really impact the world at a high level, because you've got to give some energy away, and you've got to be aware of what's going on around you. And when your head's down, when you're surviving, when you're low energy, you don't have time for any of that. So I like that idea of just this biohacktivism and impacting the world around you, and that energy flows back to you. So
absolutely. So what are some things that you do to help biohack your life?
Number one would be like the deep self work that I'm doing. I know that's not as sexy as like cold plunges and blue light and all that stuff, which I can get to in a second. But sure, the deep self work is so critical to do. Like there was points in my life when I was like jacked and ripped and I was miserable. There was points in my life when I was anorexic and miserable, points in my life when I was obese and miserable. It's like money doesn't change it, and body physique doesn't change it. And I can tell you like all that stuff, like traveling the world, all these things don't change it. It's got to start in your mind. And that's when I started accepting that my broken is my beautiful, and like it's what makes me unique. It's what sets me apart. It's what built me to be stronger. And then I started working on like daily affirmations, and working with a therapist, and having a vision board, and doing deep breathing and meditation, and listening to podcasts that encouraged me, that helped me to grow, like this one. So that's key for the foundation, and certainly choosing, going back to the people that are around you. Who are the people around you? Are you consciously choosing that 5 that you're an average of? Because that's what's coming in, and it's like garbage in, garbage out. So like, are you consciously choosing the voices that are around you that have the most profound impact around you? Are they mentors? Are you mentoring them? I mean, that's important that you don't just put people around you that you can take from. You have to give. Be the friend that you want to be. And so like that's so critical. And then from there, certainly like I do, in the morning, like if it's dark out, I'll use a blue light device, and in the evening I'll use blue light blockers, because blue light actually blocks melatonin. So it's great first thing in the morning. You can go for a walk if it's, the sun's out. But if it's dark, then I definitely recommend using some kind of blue light device, and to get your circadian rhythm going. And then in the evening, you don't want to be, looking at all the screens and the TVs and the super bright lights and all that stuff. That's when you want to turn the devices off and maybe use these blue light blocking glasses so that you can have a healthy amount of melatonin released.
Yeah, Shawn, I love those blue light blocking glasses. In fact, you got to be careful with those because you might fall asleep earlier than you want to, right? So my wife and I, we both use those at night when we're going, to bed, if we're watching maybe TV a couple hours before we go to bed, just to get our bodies in that circadian rhythm like you're talking about. And she she's the one that is more sensitive to sleep. So she uses those and it just helps keep her calm and helps her get to sleep easier. Me, I'm like already sleep pretty well. So it's like when I put those on, I gotta be careful. Otherwise I might be falling asleep while watching the TV. So they're pretty amazing. I love those. So that's great. What else are you doing?
Yeah, I love to do contrasting with temperatures. I'll do like cold plunges and then hot sauna, especially infrared sauna. I'm a fan of, which helps with the resilience and helps your metabolism, GH, testosterone, like a number of things. Like doing sauna and cold plunges and reduced inflammation, faster recovery. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And then, man, let's see. I do fasting, intermittent fasting, like I was talking about earlier. Like a lot of times it's the morning that I'll skip and I'll just have like the, maybe coffee with MCTs or something like that. And then, I do like a 16-8 or a 20-4, something like that with intermittent fasting. And then sometimes I do extended fasts. Which I really like for detox and autophagy, that cellular cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
I feel amazing after I do an extended fast.
How long are you do your extended fast for, Shawn?
I've been really enjoying doing 72 hours. I really feel like somewhere around that 24 to 36 hour mark that it really goes to a different level. Like hunger completely goes away. You feel light on your feet. The ketones like just elevate your mood. And it's kind of euphoric. Like most people think that you're just going to like, I get it all the time. Like I could never do that. That's crazy. That's impossible. And like, I'm promising you, like once you push past a little bit of hurt, like you get to this place that's really amazing and you're just cruising. You have energy like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, and people did that for thousands of years while we didn't have an instantaneous food supply, right? So yeah,
right.
If you want to try it, you're going to be okay. You're going to survive. Shawn's done it. We've done it. You're good. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. That's a great point. I mean, we didn't have food at the ready all the time. And, people did starve/fast, but, fasting has been around for probably more than 5,000 years. As long as there's been spirituality, inner work, meditation, there's been fasting, and people have found like that you gain clarity, you gain insight into yourself when you can focus on yourself and not eating, and you gain discipline in the process too. Like one thing that I love with like both keto and fasting is that you're not doing what everyone else is doing. Like if I sit down at the table and everyone's having Coke or beers or sweet tea, and then there's bread and chips on the table and all this stuff, I'm not having that. Like I'm going my own way. And then with fasting, like if someone's like, yeah, we're going to have lunch or whatever, I'm like, I can come along and, just have, tea or coffee or, whatever. Or, maybe I'll just go take a walk. But either way, like, again, I don't have to eat just because everyone else is eating. I don't have to eat because I'm hungry. I will survive, like you said. And not only will I survive, it's actually healthier for me. I will be in a healthier state than these people. But the mental resilience that, keto and fasting and doing some of this stuff a little differently can bring is a beautiful thing too. And that's where I've gotten some inner strength, is to do it different than other people are doing it. And that's okay. Like to not feel that peer pressure. That's really strengthened me mentally, like in a lot of other decisions, because when other decisions come up that are life decisions, and just because everyone's going this one way doesn't mean you have to go that way. Do what's right for you, or do what's right, period, and you'll be so much better off.
Absolutely. It's so many times in our culture now, we've been developed into really living to eat instead of actually eating to live. And when we switch that paradigm in our mindset, it's a whole different ball game, and our habits change, our reactions change, and really your life can change when you have that aspect and mindset with food. However, people can get in that state where they become those emotional eaters. They have some kind of emotional trauma whatever associated with that food. And then it becomes a really dicey, dangerous place to live in. And that's a whole other podcast we'd have to do just on that topic right there.
Agreed. Yeah, I love that.
So how about with your nutrition? Are there specific things you're doing? I mean, obviously you're the master formulator. So what are some things, if you were, for you, what are some things you do? And then maybe someone that's not at that level, what are some things that the average person could do? Like they're starting to get into biohacking. They're just starting to get into nutrition. So like, what are you doing? And then like, what could someone start with?
Yeah, I love this because most people just want to go like straight to keto or something that's like kind of extreme. And I did a podcast once called Death to Keto, and I've been doing keto for 20 years, but it's become so trendy and people look at it as like an 8 to 12 week thing and all this stuff, man. So let's just start at square one. Like, can you drop your sugar intake dramatically? That's just the big one. You know, sugar's tied to inflammation and glycation, which is blood sugar damage, which is tied to advanced glycation end products, which is literally called ages. And then all those things, inflammation, glycation, oxidation, are tied to biological aging over chronological aging and tied to most every directly genetic disease. So things like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, cancer, on and on and on, heart disease, are all tied to this like idea of one, mitochondrial dysfunction, and then two, like glycation, inflammation, oxidation. So that's where, taking control with just lowering sugar intake, massive. Take a walk after you eat as well. That postprandial stroll, as they call it, like can upregulate GLUT4 receptors on your cells, and you can take up glucose better. It'll be less insulin resistant. And then from there, I like going to, can you get your body moving? Can you start exercising? And, what does that look like? You don't have to go right to the gym and be hardcore 5 days a week with high intensity interval training. Can you, take some walks at lunch, 3 times a week? Can you join a sport, with some of your friends playing soccer, basketball? If you can't move your body like that, maybe golf or tennis or, whatever you can work in, but be active and make it fun. Like, it doesn't have to be misery. Like taking a nice walk and kind of a meditative walk, or, doing some sports with friends and connecting and getting fresh air. Those are great things. Fishing even, I don't know. I mean, something like, walk or bike wherever you need to go, and like, then go do something like fishing or meditation somewhere in the forest, or, take a hike, or, do some things like that and start somewhere. And then you can work up to maybe, using weights and doing some interval training and things like that. CrossFit, whatever fits for you.
Absolutely.
And then I like the idea of eating whole food. Some people talk about paleo, primal, Whole30, whatever. Just eating whole food from good sources, like organic, clean sources, no cruelty, grass-fed, like whatever. Like, try and get the highest quality food you can, and make sure it's like whole food. Just literally, as we were intended to eat, not processed or ultra processed foods with like 6 million ingredients and bliss point engineering that like literally releases serotonin and dopamine that overrides satiety. So you keep eating it. These foods are engineered that way. So like, it's a big thing to make some of these changes. And then you can look at, something like, and then I'd add in a little bit of fasting, like whether it's extended fasting or intermittent fasting. And I mean, just do 12 and 12, like 12 hours eating, 12 hours not eating, and then go to 16 and 8. And like get control in the snacking.
You're starting to build that foundation, right? You're not like, hey, boom, this is this advanced biohack technique where you get these lasers and this. It's like, no, like build the foundation first, start to get there. Then you're going to really up level.
Right.
Because now your body can actually do something with these other biohacks, versus if your body is just a total wreck and it's not working properly, and you try to do these advanced things, well, like you might feel a little bit better, but it's not going to really give you the long-term results you're looking for. So that's great. So now we got this foundation. Then what are some things you can start to build on from there?
Yeah, and add to that, sleeping well and hydration are going to be, massive. And those are always underestimated, but those could be two of the most core things that you can possibly do. Hydrating well and sleeping well. But
absolutely. And that sleep a lot of times will come from those other things you just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's going to up level your sleep. So that's great. Cool.
Yeah. And then, the last thing that I do add is keto. And then you're also more astute at like the changes that happen to your body. Like when you're not making radical change, like across the board, like I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to do fasting, I'm going to do keto, I'm going to use these devices, I'm going to start listening to these podcasts, I'm going to do meditation, I'm going to do, that's not the scientific method. Like make one change at a time, give it a couple of weeks, see how it does for you, make some tweaks, then if it's good, adopt it. It's part of your life now, and then add another thing so that you're astute at like the changes that are happening to your body. Not everything works for everyone.
Yeah.
And some things may work for you that don't work for most others. And you can understand that nuance when you're making small changes that can have big impacts when you're doing one at a time. So that's a critical thing that I like to tell people, because it seems like people just want to make pretty radical change, and then it ends up with kind of in radical defeat, where they stick to it for 4, 6, 8 weeks and then it's over. And that's where the whole idea of like a diet comes in versus a lifestyle. Like, how many years did it take you to get here where you now want change? So let's look at this as like a long-term thing. Is it healthy for you for the rest of your life? Okay, let's take that approach. Like, don't do like, I'm going to do 1,000 calories a day for the next 2 years. Okay, good luck destroying your metabolism.
Right.
Like you want to do something that's maintainable. That's so key. Like that truly is a lifestyle. And, that's where these hacks come in too, is like, I've got the other things dialed in. So I'm going to like start playing with some hacks to like, see if I can take it up a little bit more. It's just like an athlete, is like playing around with like, I'm already a pro athlete, an elite athlete. Now I'm going to experiment with this one new technique, and hopefully I can get a 1 or 2% improvement in performance. And that's great when you're an elite athlete. So it's the same thing when, you're a human being and you've now got your sleep dialed, your supplements dialed, your nutrition dialed, your, fasting, your mindset, hydration. I've got everything in place, exercise. Now I can make some tweaks, just like that pro athlete. I'm at a much different place as a pro athlete than I am with some guy who's watching me on TV that's sitting on his couch. And that's the way you have to approach this with your wellness, with your physical, mental, spiritual wellness.
That's awesome. And so for our listeners too, how can they start to get, so like maybe they start to build some of this foundation. They're starting to get there. They're feeling confident that, maybe they're 3 to 6 months into this change in this process and they're feeling more confident. They're like, okay, how can I start to do some different things, just do some things differently, right? To start to up level some things. Is there a way that they can get more resources from you or work with you to some degree? Like how does that work?
Yeah. I have a lot of resources. I mean, if you're like at that elite level, then you can, mess with like the Ben Greenfield and Dave Asprey kind of stuff. But I'm reluctant to mention that to someone who's like kind of early in their journey, because that stuff can be very overwhelming. Like sticking yourself like, 6 times a day with different anti-aging peptides and, giving yourself enemas and, with coffee grounds, and like these guys are doing like all kinds of stuff that's a little on the extreme side for some people. And, that's cool. Like they're pushing the limits and, we're seeing the experiments and how they play out and what could be, something worth doing. But, for most people, I like to kind of start a little slower, like I was saying, and you can follow me for kind of more of a medium ground. It just depends on where you're at mentally and physically. So, yeah, you can follow me, ShawnWells.com, Instagram at Ingredientologist. I have a lot of information like cited guides, everything's scientifically backed, everything's free. I'll be coming out with a book later this year called The Energy Formula. And it's actually an acronym for experimentation. So like biohacking, how to do that correctly, nutrition, exercise, routines, like morning and nighttime routines become critical. Growth mindset, so that stoic kind of mindset, and then you and your tribe, which is like a community, and how connection is so key. And of course, we're seeing that through COVID be a massive component that we all miss is just deep connection.
That's awesome. I love that acronym. That's amazing. That's pure genius right there. I love it. That's because you're biohacked, right? You can't come up with those good ideas unless you're biohacking your brain.
100%. And a biohack I'll throw out there that I've been looking into along with therapy and this deep self work, which man, I can't even tell you, like getting back to like the inner child and doing this therapy work that I'm doing with this one lady who uses like the teachings of Byron Katie. I don't know if you know who that is, but Byron Katie's incredible at like how you like flip the stories that you've told yourself, and then you disempower like the other figures in that memory or what just happened, and then you empower yourself. And it's like I have to be in my realm of power, and then it's like it's not about them anymore. It's about you and the stories you've told yourself, and you have the power to not let this bring you down or define you, and you can define yourself. And it's like once you start like kind of reframing, it's just a powerful exercise. But I've added that, and I've been working with microdosed psilocybin twice a week at 80 milligrams, which is a super low dose, subperceptual. When people do psilocybin, it's multiple grams, like that's, and maybe several hundred milligrams is possibly perceptual. But that would be what's called like a mini dose at several hundred grams or several hundred milligrams, sorry. And then several grams is kind of the experiential dose that you journey on, or, whatever.
What's that based from? Is that from like mushrooms or?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But that's been like, so I can't even tell you, like, it's not perceptual, but like over this period of time, I've just felt more calm, more neuroplastic, more able to receive criticism, more just at ease, like less worry, less anxiety. And I actually got off an SSRI I was on, which I had started during this COVID period because I was getting down for a little while. There was about 3 weeks that I was struggling, as I think, much of the world has been.
Yeah, absolutely.
And acknowledge that. Acknowledge your body and listen to your body. Listen to what your mind is saying, and then like, let's make a game plan to work on that. Like, let's put your shoes by the door and have your bag packed and the night before, and let's go. Like, let's start getting some exercise. Exercise is powerful. Connecting with people is powerful, at least over Zoom or Skype or FaceTime or whatever. But hopefully you get some in-person contact time too. And those are powerful things to move you forward and really do that deep work. And like I said, consciously choosing what you're consuming. I became more aware of, like, when I'm stressed, I don't want to watch like horror or action or whatever. Like, sometimes I just want to watch like The Office or Parks and Rec or like, kind of dumb stuff. Cause it's like, like, no, that's not what my heart needs right now.
No, at this time we don't need more social media, more news, more of this stuff.
Right.
For me, my wife and I right now, we're just watching Seinfeld. She never watched Seinfeld, right? It's like, hey, we got to laugh before we go to bed. So we watch one episode before we go to bed. Boom, puts us in that calm state, right? With our blue light filtering glasses. It's like, there's our biohack, right?
You've got it figured out. That's awesome, man. Good job, guys.
That's awesome. So awesome. Well, Shawn, to finish up here, I want to ask you one question.
Yeah.
To put us out here is, with everything we talked about, really, what does reaching your fullest potential mean to you?
I'm at a completely different place now. Years ago, I would have said like a jacked, ripped body that can do anything like parkour and CrossFit and heavy lifts and all this kind of stuff and all the sports. Or maybe I would have said like, having a Lamborghini and having an incredible job and owning a company, having lots of money in the bank. And now, like after doing this deep self-work and like, going to some retreats and, just being around people that are just gentle, soulful people, like, I just think it's like we are here for connection and we are here for our legacy and we're here to learn and we're here to get better, not in terms of like what, society is telling us is better, like more money, bigger houses and more ripped bodies. It's a journey, man. It's a journey about, can you make this world a better place? Can you love yourself? I mean, there's a saying from Will Cole that's you can't heal what you hate. If you hate your body, if you hate yourself, if you let others determine your self-worth, then you're never going to grow. You're never going to heal. And there's a lot to heal. Trust me, I don't care who you are. I've been working on this for 46 years and I still have a long way to go. Long way. And it's only, one of the things I've learned too, Chris, it's only when you become an expert, you realize how much more like there is to learn. Yeah, when I was young and I was just first getting into nutrition and like when I visited that doctor, I was actually kind of full of myself because like I knew more than most of my friends because I was reading the magazines, I was taking supplements, I was working out. People were like, how you doing that? I'm like, well, let me tell you, I got all this expertise. I didn't realize that there was, people in biochemistry and kinesiology and physics and, all these things, that the nuances of like what makes someone great. I think back to like, what's that story? Good Will Hunting, when the math professor says to Will, he says, there's only a few people in the world that would know the difference between me and you. Because Will is just like this beyond genius. And, the professor's like this math award winner. And, it's one of those things like you appreciate as you kind of keep learning is you're never there. There's always people that are like better at something that you can learn from. And that's such a beautiful thing. Like I feel so blessed to know that now, that there's teachers all around me. And that's been part of this journey, is just trying to learn from these teachers. And I'm constantly teaching myself too, like that, that, like you said, like, you win or you learn. So I'm a great teacher to myself too, because sometimes I'm winning, but most of the time I'm learning.
There we go.
And,
I love it.
And that's where I'm at. Yeah. So I think it's about enjoying the journey and having self-love. And from there, like, the world's your oyster.
Cool. That's perfect, man. So Shawn, man, continue enjoying your journey. Like all of you listening out here today, check out ShawnWells.com and his other resources. We'll put those on the podcast show notes as well. Shawn, appreciate having you on for the second time. And hopefully we can have you on again on a different aspect as you start to just continue to learn more and cultivate your biohacking.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. To get this and other episodes and other free resources we mentioned today, go to newedgewellness.com or listen to the Happy Healthy Hormones with Dr. Chris podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher.